Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, I guess. Good morning to those of you on the other coast. It's so great to have so many folks on the call. People are still being let in. We have 190 registered today, and which I think is a testament to our great education committee, and I want to thank them. Dale Clifford, Sue Priester, and Karen Holly for the outstanding programming they've been providing, and for all of you who, including Vicki Sheehan and Anna Graves today, who are providing your expertise to share with us. I only have a couple of other announcements to make. Here we are. We got the right slide. Dale and I had a little mix up, and my slides aren't in the show in this deck, but they will be added back when we put it up on the website. So you don't necessarily have to write all this down, but if you're not familiar with Philanthropy Together, it is the 5-year initiative that was launched on April 1st of 2020, which seemed like a joke at the time, to provide support for the entire field of collective giving. It's what we used to call the co-design. This is what we designed. And if you haven't spent any time on their website, I would urge you to do so. And Nancy's going to drop a link in the chat for where you should go to tell the story of your giving circle. And our partnership with them through this whole year has deepened a lot. And so 2 things you need to know about. Whoever is in your organization considered the bundle administrator for Philanos will receive a survey this week from Philanthropy Together and Philanos. The goal of this is for them to create a searchable database of giving circles and other kinds of collective giving organizations around the country. This was one of my pet projects as a part of the co-design team, because I've done dozens of Google searches over the years when my kids or friends or family or members move to a new town to find them an organization to join. This will make that so much easier. So please fill it out when you get it. There'll be a profile party that Philanthropy Together is hosting on January 28th, 4 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. If you have questions about what information they're looking for. We added about 5 questions at the end that are related to how your organization may have pivoted since we were all together last February. The additional programming that Philanos is going to do this year in place of an in-person conference, we are going to push all to the month of May. Philanthropy Together is hosting the We Give Summit throughout the month. And we're going to be, we've already got 4 sessions in development, and we're looking for other ideas. If there's something you would like to hear about, learn about, or something that you think your group has a particular expertise in and would like to present, please reach out to Susan Benford or to me. And again, welcome. I hope everybody in your world is well. Take care, everybody. And I'm going to kick it over to Sue Priester.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Welcome, everybody. As Paula mentioned, this is our largest attendance ever on a Philanos webinar. So thank you all, and we hope you learn from and enjoy what you will see and hear today, and we welcome you back. Just a note on how we will handle this. I'm going to introduce our 2 speakers today, and we will do questions and answers after both of them have spoken. But please use the Q&A button for the webinar to, as you think of questions, go ahead and type them in, and I'll work on putting them together after both of them have spoken. But you can enter them at any time. Again, please use the Q&A button. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce both of our speakers today. First will be Vicki Sheehan, known to many of you. She is a founding member and past chair of the Philanos board, as well as a founding member of the Spirit of St. Louis Women's Funds. She serves on both boards. Vicki chaired the WCGN, as we were known then, the 2014 conference in St. Louis. Vicky's professional career actually began as a trial attorney and developed into commercial real estate investment, development, and management as president of Sheehan Investment Services. She co-founded a nonprofit real estate advisor group offering pro bono professional services to St. Louis nonprofits dealing with real estate matters. Now semi-retired, Vicky is a managing member of the Mount Carmel Senior Living Center in St. Charles, Missouri. Her nonprofit board service includes the YWCA and the Junior League of St. Louis. Our next speaker will be Anna Graves. She is a branding expert with over 20 years experience in growing and developing for-profit and nonprofit brands. After years of working at leading firms, she founded her own consulting practice, Quintessence Consulting, with the goal of helping small to medium-sized organizations. Anna co-founded Impact Seattle 100 in 2020, which obviously became one of our newest member groups, and we welcome them. In its first year, employing the principles of trust-based philanthropy, Impact 100 Seattle granted a total of $100,000 in unrestricted grants to 5 small, local, community-based organizations that are working to transform this region. I'm very glad that Anna's bio, as she sent it to me, mentioned trust-based philanthropy. Philanos members learned about this probably for the first time from Pia Infante and Vu Le at our Power Up conference back in February in Seattle, which was hosted by the Washington Women's Foundation. For many of us, that might have been the last time we actually went out of town going to that conference. I know it was for me. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vicki. And again, please type your questions in Q&A and we will get to them after both presentations. Vicki, it's yours.
Thanks, everybody. As Sue generously said, I'm Vicki Sheehan, and I'm a member of the Spirit of St. Louis Women's Fund, which we call SOS. I've been privileged to participate on a local and national level in the evolution of the women's collective giving movement from the beginning thought groups at Colleen Willoughby's house in Seattle in 2007. That's about the same time that Spirit of St. Louis Women's Fund was founded, and it was our first year of grant making. Knowing so many of you all and working together with you has enhanced my life immeasurably. The work we do makes me very proud. So thank you for what you do, and thanks for joining today. All right. There's some of our great members of Spirit of St. Louis Women's Fund. And I cannot help but mention that SOS is an enthusiastic fan of Philanos. 8 to 10 SOS members always attend the conference at their own expense, and they really value the experience. The Philanos webinars are publicized and widely viewed by our members, and the website is considered a valuable resource. We really recommend that each Philanos affiliate add a board position of Philanos liaison to your board. I think it's a great idea to have someone who's dedicated to knowing what's going on with Philanos and to educating and bringing up to date your local organization on it. On to today's topic. I'm delighted to present on small grants with big impact. SOS's culture values this idea. I think all our organizations should thoughtfully reflect their members' beliefs on what makes impactful grant making in their communities. One of the challenges to SOS's values has always been whether to make large grants instead of our comparatively small grants. And we have over the years evaluated and reevaluated this regularly. We've recently made a change and added one large grant to our program, and we're very pleased with that. I want to thank and give credit to our grants chair at SOS, Joanne Sanditz, and SOS past president, Amy Inman, as well as Dale Clifford, the Philanos Board and Education Chair, for both research and technical support graciously offered and gratefully received. SOS facts. Founded in 2006 based on the Women's Washington Women's Foundation model, 240 members, $1,200 annual contribution. 90% of our annual contribution goes to grant making. We're an all volunteer organization. All members vote on our grantees. We are supported by our community foundation in St. Louis for administrative and financial housekeeping matters, and we appreciate that very much. We make 10 to 12 grants per year in amounts from $5,000 to $25,000. And we now, as I mentioned, make one 3-year grant of $100,000 every 3 years. That $100,000 is actually provided to the grantee in 3 equal installments over each of those 3 years. Our grantees are also small. They may not have an annual budget exceeding $1.5 million. Originally, that number was $1 million, and a couple of years ago, we changed the number and increased it to reflect just market conditions. We have a very vibrant education and impact evaluation program. Why small grants? In 2006, the St. Louis community highly favored, and that's when we were founded, 2006, the St. Louis community highly favored funding models or funding established large not-for-profits. Founders of SOS loved the Washington Women's Foundation model for collective giving, and they adapted that model to fill what we saw as real gaps in funding by focusing dollars on valuable, innovative efforts of social entrepreneurs that we admired. In St. Louis, we were a very philanthropic community supported by one of the largest United Ways in the country, as well as a host of Fortune 500 corporations who looked to United Way to guide their philanthropy. Foundations often followed suit. The United Way was viewed as the safe and most credible funder in the community. So established and larger nonprofits were well funded. Smaller nonprofits with new ideas had a difficult time getting on the map. Faith-based organizations were good resources for smaller efforts, but by no means enough to fill needs. The gap that we saw was a gap that just interested us. The not-for-profits who were leaders of smaller organizations often needed a chance to get in front of the large funders, but they couldn't do so. They needed to prove their ideas were good and sustainable, but they couldn't get the support they needed to get to that point. They weren't getting enough support either because they didn't know how to get an audience, because they didn't have a track record to support their value, or because they didn't know how to tell their story. For example, if you didn't have an audited financial statement and no funds to allocate to the cost of the audited financial statement, you couldn't get in front of most funders. Small grants of $5,000 to $25,000 to these smaller not-for-profits who were working under the radar of the usual grantors made a really substantial difference to them. They were in fact large grants to those organizations. A grant of $100,000 might well overwhelm some of the smaller grantees that we work with at SOS. Smaller grants would help our grantees prove themselves by building track records. They could then get the attention of other donors and volunteers. So the smaller grants to non-for-profits with annual budgets of under $1 million was agreed upon as the right fit for our community and our members. Importantly, we were able, through our volunteers, to take the time and effort to engage and study the smaller not-for-profits. In fact, that's exactly what SOS members wanted to do. Our SOS members often joined primarily to learn about organizations doing good in St. Louis who really needed their help. One of the deterrents from larger funders or corporate funders or foundations in supporting the smaller not-for-profits was lack of manpower or staff to evaluate the not-for-profits. So we filled that need with our volunteers who actually wanted to engage in and learn and study the smaller not-for-profits. SOS's grant-making process is shown on this slide, and I'll just point out so that I can make a point about the breadth of our knowledge of the small nonprofits in the city of St. Louis. When we first began, we liked the concept, and we thought, okay, this is a great idea. Let's let everyone know that we are open for business and we'll grant these smaller not-for-profits, and let's send the word out. We did it through the Community Foundation's mailing list, by letters, by email, every way we could think of to let the community know that we were interested in funding smaller not-for-profits. And our first question was, who will apply? Wonder how many of these letters of interest or inquiry we're going to get. Even in our first year in 2006, we got something like 90 letters of inquiry, and we're shocked at the number of letters of inquiry that there were. Now, over the last 3 years, we had 106 letters of inquiry in 2018, 2019, 213 letters of inquiry, 2020, 286 letters of inquiry. Our volunteers review, discuss, and reduce the 286 letters of inquiry to 40. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the volunteer power. After the volunteers review the letters of inquiry and reduce them to 40 organizations who are in the running for a grant, we do full proposals. We ask the grantees to prepare a larger proposal and to provide financials and other additional information. And our new volunteer teams, the site visit teams, review those proposals, discuss them, and conduct site visits of those 40 organizations. We have a financial team who's trained to review the financials of the organizations. We do 3 years of financials and IRS 990s, and we also look at the budgets for the coming year. The ballot that we ultimately come up with after the site visits narrows the 40 groups down to 18 to 20. And the membership votes after a ballot fair where they had the opportunity to fully review the organizations and to talk to site visit team members about the organizations. In May, we have a Spirit Awards ceremony and a wonderful celebration of our grantees. And again, more opportunities for our members to get to know the grantees by talking to them in person. So during the course of the year, 60 plus volunteers in all comprise 8 to 10 small teams to review LOIs and 8 to 10 small teams to review full proposals and conduct site visits. Plenty of opportunity for learning there. Dale? There we go. The impact map that you are looking at here shows all of SOS's grant making over the course of 14 years. It's an interactive map that we have on our website, and it's worth every affiliate looking at to see what a cool and effective document this is. What it shows here is all organizations granted, grouped by areas of interest or areas of impact for 14 years. And if people are interested, Dale will demonstrate, if time allows, in the question and answer period, just how this works. But basically what you're seeing is in the small bubbles, those are the names of every organization that we have granted to over the years. And if you click on those little bubbles, you can go direct from our website to the website of those individual organizations. What it shows big picture, aside from the interactive aspect to the map, is that our members have overwhelmingly over the years voted for the organizations that are shown in green, who are organizations in the area of social services. And we broke down those organizations into basic needs, immigrant and refugees, children and teen services, trauma support, and homelessness and shelter. We also show the areas in teal of health organizations that we've granted. Blue is environment, gray education, and pale blue is arts and culture. Dale, my control of the Philanos screen is not working right now. There we go, but we went a little fast. There, that's better. Okay, I want to talk about, and I'm going to move through this fairly quickly because I think it's somewhat self-explanatory, and I want to get to some initial or some individual examples of grantees that we've supported within my time. So benefits to SOS members of this small granting process. There's the opportunity for many members to be engaged in the grant-making process. Site visits are reported by members to be their most inspirational and enlightening opportunities. We've exposed over 350 St. Louis women who are interested in philanthropy to several hundred not-for-profits over the years. Our education programs, which are not the topic of this presentation, are pretty dynamic, and they seek to offer our members information in trends in philanthropy and in areas of need in St. Louis. We try to stay on the cutting edge, and frankly, Philanos helps us stay on the cutting edge of trends in philanthropy and also of areas that we should be concerned about within our community. Our SOS members become generalists. They receive a general education in informed grant making, and they become philanthropists who are confident, involved, and who give more to their community. Benefits to the not-for-profits are, whether they're funded or not, they get meaningful and wide exposure to our SOS members and consequently to the community. The process that we ask our not-for-profits to go through in the letter of inquiry stage and the full proposal stage, plus the site visits, really provides a training opportunity for not-for-profit staff on how to apply for grants. We have a formal in-person training session, and just going through the process and looking at the website and determining what it is we're asking for can really prepare staff who often are changing and who are young and who are new in the not-for-profits on how to apply for grants, preparing them for larger grants someday if that's what they're after, which of course, as we know, everybody always is. Making it through the SOS vetting process has proven over the years by reputation to develop a not-for-profit's credibility. Receiving a grant is kind of like receiving sort of an SOS seal of approval, and community donors recognize that that shows that an organization is valid and grantable and is worthwhile to grant to, or at least to look at. Benefits to the community, obviously $2.7 million that are new dollars invested in St. Louis over 14 years. We have made 165 grants to 86 different grantees who formerly flew under the radar of funders. Some of our grantees obviously have received more than one grant. They're eligible to have a grant 2 years in a row, and then they have to step back for a year, and then they can come back to us again. We've provided the first grants to several not-for-profits. Several not-for-profits received SOS grants that they did leverage immediately to generate wider support. And there has actually been a transformation that has occurred in several small not-for-profits with big ideas who have become powerful not-for-profits who make a big difference in the community now. I'd like to talk about a couple of those now. College Bound supports low-income students success in four-year colleges by providing counseling and support to qualified kids from high school through college who otherwise have no access to college counseling and who often are the first in their families to attend college. This organization was founded in 2006, about the same time that SOS was begun. It had 2 high schools that they were involved in and 36 students that they were working with. SOS provided grants from 2008 to 2012. The SOS grants for College Bound totaled $55,000 in, I believe it was 4 different grants. After only 2 grants from SOS, College Bound leveraged SOS's support into a $500,000 grant by a corporate donor who was impressed with the concept of the program and convinced of its value by SOS's vetting process and support of it. College Bound is now active in 40 schools, supports 550 students, has a $2.7 million budget, and does not qualify for SOS support. Also, doesn't need it. The Little Bit Foundation, begun by 2 moms who wanted to help underprivileged grade school kids by providing warm coats and shoes of their own. As they learned what kids really did need in some of the underprivileged schools in the city of St. Louis, they expanded their services immeasurably so that now they're quite a powerhouse. SOS was Little Bit's first grant in 2009. We supported Little Bit with approximately 4 small grants over the period of 2009 to 2016. A total of $85,000 in separate small grants to Little Bit Foundation helped it get on the map, and it has grown from 1 school serving 36 students in 2006 to 40 schools serving 14,000 kids. Its budget is now $5.7 million. They have not needed SOS for some time now. Soul Fisher Ministries was begun in 2015 by Chantel Fisher, a formerly incarcerated convicted felon with no more than a proof of concept and a handful of kids served. While incarcerated, Chantel had experienced difficulty making sure that her kids received the tutoring that they needed to succeed in school. Once released, she started a program and sought SOS funding for a school tutoring program when their budget was only $104,000. Chantel, as a convicted felon, was unable to get a loan, nor could she find any substantial support. An SOS grant in 2015 of $10,000 helped her obtain 3 other grants later that year. And after 2 more small grants from SOS, Soul Fisher received a $1 million Department of Education grant and a $500,000 Department of Justice grant for a program that now provides extensive and expanded wraparound support services for formerly incarcerated women. It's an award-winning program with an annual budget nearing $1 million annually, again showing that the smaller nonprofits can have huge impact. SOS's financial investment, $53,000 in 3 grants. Finally, Story Stitchers, the St. Louis Story Stitchers Artist Collective, Stitchcast Studio Project, founded in 2014 by 8 artists to combat gun violence by linking African American youth ages 16 through 24 with professional mentor artists to collaboratively create social justice art. Gun violence is now identified as a major public health crisis, and Black youth in St. Louis City identify it as the #1 issue they face. Story Stitchers provides opportunities for these young voices to be heard and offers positive alternatives for a successful transition to adulthood. In SOS, Story Stitchers received its first grant in 2017, Story Stitchers received its first grant from SOS in the amount of $8,360. In 3 years, Story Stitchers' budget grew, and it was producing regular video and live youth-led discussion-based educational podcasts featuring community mentors. In the spring of 2020, SOS awarded its second $100,000 grant to Story Stitchers. We support staffing, studio equipment, and youth stipends. In the fall of 2020, Story Stitchers applied for a Lewis Prize Music Accelerator Grant Award for 2021. Out of 200 organizations that completed nationally for this award, Story Stitchers made it to the finalist round of 8, and SOS was invited to present along with other supporters of Story Stitchers in the virtual site visit with the Lewis Prize Leadership Panel. Today, January 12th, 2021, the Lewis Prize for Music announced that Story Stitchers will be the recipient of a $500,000 Accelerator Award to build a youth music and technology center by growing its administrative and fundraising capacity. Now I'd like to introduce Anna Graves, who represents a newer and very impressive organization with its own small grant program. Anna?
Thank you so much, Vicki. What a rich and interesting presentation. I can only hope that in 15 years, we will have as many success stories as you. I am going to try to gain control of the screen, but for some reason, let's see, Dale, it's not working. Oh, here we go. Okay, so thank you so much for having us here today. Thank you to Philanos for creating such a rich forum for collective giving organizations, both established like SOS and new like us. I personally have attended a few of these webinars and have had the good fortune of meeting Paula and some other Philanos members early on in our journey to start Impact 100 Seattle. Their support and advice has really been invaluable as we have tried to start a brand new collective giving group. So unlike the Spirit of St. Louis, our journey started very recently. I first heard of the impact model through a dear friend of mine, Deirdre, who started the Impact 100 Jersey Coast chapter. And at the beginning of 2019, I teamed up with Angenda, my co-founder, and together we embarked on a learning journey, talking to nonprofit community in Seattle to better understand the needs of our region. Right away, we learned that we would need to adapt the impact model to accommodate the unique landscape of Seattle. And given how much we learned, we decided to make an ethos out of constantly listening, learning, and adapting to our environment. Of course, in 2019, we had no idea just how much we would have to adapt in our first year. But let me step back a bit. Dale, would you be able to flip the slide? Oh, there we go. And tell you a little bit about our organization. Our vision at Impact 100 Seattle is to connect women to each other and local nonprofits, harnessing the collective strength of our community to support transformative change in our region. We want to give beyond the check, employing all of our intellectual, emotional, and financial resources to create supportive relationship with our grantee partners. We also feel that it is our role to educate our members so that together we can better support our communities. As I said before, in late spring of 2019, Anne and I gathered a team of 14 women who helped us get this off the ground. And after a few months of strategizing, planning, and executing, we kicked off our recruitment and membership drive in November of 2019. That's when we told everyone that we would be presenting one transformational $100,000 grant to a local nonprofit in November of 2020. Things were going great until the beginning of February. As some of you may remember, Seattle was one of the earliest hit areas for COVID. And even by the end of February, people were reluctant to meet in person. And by early March, pretty much everything was shut down. So we had to learn and adapt, and we pivoted our recruitment to online and the good old telephone. After lots of phone calls, we were able to recruit 100 members and therefore had $100,000 to give away. However, We also saw that the situation in Seattle was really changing. It was really dire, the economy, for the economy of Seattle and our community. And it just didn't seem right to hold on to this much money until November. So as a leadership team, we considered many different options and presented a proposal to drastically shorten our application and review period in order to get the money into the community faster. We also proposed to move to multiple smaller grants, given that so many small organizations were in need. So shortly after membership closed, we held a vote and had overwhelming support to pivot our strategy. We opened the grant application in the second week of April and closed it on April 26th. We then moved quickly and awarded grants on June 18th. That's less than 3 months after the close of our membership. And I'll talk a little bit about our grant process in a couple of minutes. There were lots of changes along the way. However, the entire time we were guided by these grant giving principles that were defined by the grant strategy team even before we started this process. First, we filtered our decisions through the principles of trust-based philanthropy, something that has already been mentioned a couple of times today. And the idea is here to reduce the nonprofit's burden of application and reporting while working to address the power imbalance that exists between the grant giver and grant recipient. We also looked for organizations that are truly community-based and address the root causes of social issues and disparities in those communities. We wanted to embrace risk. We wanted to embrace organizations that may not have a long history and a built-out infrastructure, but might have some bold goals and a leadership team that we believed in. And then finally, as I said before, we continually listened, learned, and evolved as we went along. Our application process was very simple. Even when we were looking to award just one grant of $100,000, we developed an application process that decreased the burden on the applicants. We wanted to make applying for our grants simple and not a barrier. This was even more critical when we pivoted to smaller grants. Our initial application had 5 questions that focused on the transformation that the organizations were striving for and how COVID impacted them. Thanks to the wise advice of a local nonprofit leader, Vu Le, we did not have any character limits on questions, so that the organizations could easily reapply answers from previous applications. During the grant review process, we focused on equity and eliminating bias where we could. We had a group of 20 women, so 20% of our organization, who volunteered to read every single application in a span of around a week. We had 68 organizations apply for our first round. Each member received all of the applications in different order, again, to minimize bias. Once everyone reviewed and scored the applications, we met as a group, and through what I guess I would call the spirited discussion, guided by our initial reviews, we chose 12 semifinalists. And that's where we really started, got down to work even farther. Once we were down to 12, our financial review team pulled all of the 990 forms for our organizations and asked the organizations for whatever were their most recent financial statements. We did not ask for any particular way to provide those because once again, we wanted to allow them to reapply what they already had. We also asked for an hour Zoom call during which we got to know the leadership more. We asked outstanding questions and provided an opportunity for the organizations to tell us anything else that we missed. After preparing executive summaries of all 12 organizations, and those were again written by our members in order to equalize the playing field, the grant review team once again, and through a series of breakouts, arrived at 5 finalists. Those finalists were presented at the annual meeting by the members of our grant review team. Our members voted on their top 3 choices, and their votes determined the final allocation of the dollars. 3 organizations were granted the full amount of the request, and then the other 2 split the remainder of the money. So we gave 3 $25,000 grants and 2 grants of $12,500. The organizations were not present at the annual meeting, in order to once again reduce bias and diminish the power imbalance. However, once the grants were determined, we had calls with each nonprofit and were able to record the reactions and share with our members, which was just so rewarding for everyone. Over the past 6 months, we have been getting to know our grantees. The East African Community Services, Somali Family Safety Task Force, Para Los Niños, Community Passageways, and Young Women Empowered. I can tell you that every single time we speak to them, we learn something new. And we're so humbled by the amazing work that they do, and really proud to be able to support them. So what did we learn through the process? First of all, smaller grants can have a big impact, especially when they are unrestricted. Munira, who is the executive director of East African Community Services, said it best when she said, when you have unrestricted funding, first and foremost, the funder is telling you that you're in charge. You know what you're doing. It allows you the flexibility to move the money around to reflect the community's needs. We also learned just how busy and overworked and underpaid the leaders of these organizations are. The last thing that we want to do is give them more work. Therefore, it was critical for us to reduce the burden of the application process. Finally, we also found that the best way to truly make a big impact with small grants is to contribute beyond the check, opening doors and spreading the word about your partners. Dominique Davis is the executive director of Community Passageways, an organization that tries to intercept the school to prison pipeline by working with troubled youth through advocacy, interventions, coaching, job placement, and pretty much anything else that you can think of. It's an amazing organization that has seen tremendous growth over the past year. We invited Dom to speak at the member meeting in October, and really by the end of his presentation, he had us all in tears. We did ask him what else we can do for him, what else we can do for Community Passageways. He then told us about a capital campaign that he's starting to raise money for an actual physical space for these troubled youth to be able to convene in. Since that meeting, we have been able to connect him with 2 prominent funders who are willing to help him financially as well as in the planning process. So that really demonstrates just how it is possible to partner with grantee partners, regardless of how much money you give them, and really grow that impact. So now, as we step into year 2 of our existence, we continue to listen and learn and evolve. We will return to one large grant, which we hope that it will be $100,000. But we will also guarantee that each finalist will walk away with something. So we will still be in the business of small grants. We heard again and again that the faster we can go from application to grant, the better. In this uncertain world, any certainty we can provide is good. This year, we will take less than 3 months from application to grant award. Last year, in just 3 weeks, we received 68 applications. In retrospect, our definition of an ideal grantee partner was not clear. So this year, we will further define what we feel is transformational work. We have decreased the size of the organizations we're looking to partner with. And in order to better serve the needs of marginalized communities, we are focusing on organizations with leadership that reflects the community that they are serving. And finally, one of the biggest mistakes we made last year was not to allow fiscally sponsored organizations to apply for our grants. Through the application process, we found that many grassroots organizations benefit greatly from fiscal sponsorship. And in fact, many giving groups themselves benefit from it. This year, we will welcome applications from fiscally sponsored organizations. So over the next year and beyond, we will continue to define how we can support our partners, because the best way to amplify a small grant is to support the organization beyond the check. We will continue to listen to our grantee partners, learn from them and from our mistakes, and evolve to become better at supporting the amazing work that is taking place in our community. And so now I will hand it back over to Sue for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. Come on camera and unmute yourselves, please. Vicki and Anna. There's Anna. Great. Thank you so much. If there is one word to sum up, I guess, the experience of all of us this year, is adaptation. And as women do, we improvise. And so these stories of improvisation are really very inspiring. I know right now we will not be able to get to all the questions that have come in. So I do want to tell you, you're looking at a slide now that shows Vicki's email address, Anna's email address. So let's put that slide back up there, please. There we go. So I'm sure they would welcome your questions, and let you know that this whole webinar will be posted on the Philanos site, so that if there's things you wish to review, share with other members of your groups, you will be able to do so. So, boy, a lot of things to get here. There have been a couple of questions about how you're evaluating your nonprofits. First of all, easy question here. Do they have to already have the 501c3 status or not? How do you
Yes.
handle that, both of you?
They do.
And
So
Anna,
So for us, they did last year, but one of the things that we heard when speaking to small nonprofits in Seattle is that many of them are actually fiscally sponsored. So they are fiscally sponsored by whether it's a community foundation or another 501c3. And we found that those really are the small grassroots organizations that we want to support. So that is one thing that we are changing for the 2021 grant cycle, and we will not require them to have their own 501c3.
got it.
That's-
Okay.
SOS would accept a fiscally sponsored organization too. They just have to have access to a 501c3. So that'd be fine with us.
Okay, good. That's a good clarification. And since you are going with smaller organizations, and this is for both of you, what kinds of tools or methodology in your grant review process do you use to help evaluate the risk of, let's say, an unproven organization? Because I gather some of the organizations, especially Vicki, since you have experience with so many, they may not have gotten grants in the past. So they may not have a community representation or reputation. Vicki, let me ask you that first. How do you assess the risk in a new, perhaps unproven organization?
When we're impressed with an idea and the team that's making that idea happen and their plan, we simply use our own subjective judgment as to whether we believe in that idea and that team enough to go ahead and support. Sometimes we make a smaller grant if we think a group might need a little help to get started or prove their concept. But our teams have the ability and the authorization and to go ahead and use their own judgment and agree upon whether we think an organization's worthy track record or no.
And just to follow up, and then I'll ask the same question to Anna. Have you had some cases where your trust or your hopes have gone, let's say, unfulfilled?
We have had some interesting situations where not-for-profits have communicated with us that for one reason or another, they were not able to deploy the funds in the way that they had been granted those funds. And we welcome that communication, and our grants chairs evaluate it. And sometimes it comes all the way to the board, and we make a decision about what would be fair in terms of shall you hold the funds over or not expend them now? We take that on a case-by-case basis and based upon circumstances. But we haven't had a situation where someone has, well, I guess we had one situation in all of these grants where someone just didn't use the funds properly and at all in the way that we had expected. And we talked and talked with them and evaluated what we thought was appropriate in that situation.
Okay, I imagine many of our groups have had similar experiences. Anna, what is your group using? And you mentioned some of the changes that you have upcoming for your next grant cycle, but how are you evaluating risk?
I mean, I think that is very similar to what Vicki said. There's definitely a piece of it that is gut feeling, and being able to talk to the leadership and really, buy into the leadership of the organization is extremely important. And since some of these organizations are much younger and don't have as much of a track record, there needs to be a little bit of a propensity to take a risk. And that's definitely one of the things that we're willing to do. So I mean, I think that everything that Vicki said, and we do look at the finances, and we're continually refining our strategy there, and we will continue to make sure that that sort of the finances of an organization show that they are doing what they're saying that they're doing.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about your programmatic versus operating grants? And in addition to that, there's been a question too, how do you decide how much to give to an organization? Is it strictly what they ask for, or do you make modifications on that? Vicki, I'll start again with you.
We make modifications to it when the site visit team believes that that's appropriate. We have on occasion recommended less than a request was. We have also had site teams be so impressed with the site visit and the information they've received that they suggest that we grant a higher amount than the organization has requested. And it's, again, our site teams are empowered to really do what they think. We feel like since they're randomly selected from our volunteers, and so they represent all different points of view of different women with different backgrounds, there's a lot of power in the simple discussion that can follow between women who are using their backgrounds and their intelligence to evaluate an organization. And so we give them some ability to use discretion with regard to that.
Okay, and Anna, and let me add, we just had another question come in specifically for you. Are you going to keep your practice of unrestricted grants, and now that you're going back to a $100,000 grant, and how will that work?
Absolutely. So we definitely founded the organization based on unrestricted grants. We want to find organizations whose leadership we believe in, and we believe that they are the best judge of how to spend the money. And so we will definitely continue to do that. So I guess to answer the question, all of our grants are unrestricted, so there is no programmatic grants. And we've only had 1 year behind our belt. And this year we were not able to fund all the finalists at the amount that they asked for. And so we did reduce some of the grants, but that's simply because we just did not have as much money as we wanted to give away.
Yeah, understood.
Go
ahead, Vicki.
I should comment on that as well. 15 years ago, as beginning grant makers, in most of our cases and SOS members, we focused on project-based grants. Mm-hmm. And we've developed an understanding and watched the trends in giving, which Anna really reflects, which is so interesting to me. And we have developed a great understanding of the value of general operating support over the course of the years. And we are committed to the value of that at this time. And we feel like that is part of trust-based philanthropy and that it's important to go that direction. We also, when COVID hit, we switched our concept of what we were giving for and contacted all of our grantees this year and offered them the opportunity to deploy their grants as deemed appropriate by them in order to manage in the COVID crisis. We tried to demonstrate some flexibility and responsiveness to the people who are doing the work in the community. And that's something we believe in. So we are much more open to and much more likely now to do a general operating support grant or specifically a capacity building grant. And our members understand the importance of both of those things now.
Great, thank you. I think we'd find that same thing echoed through a lot of our member organizations. Now, going along with that, another big trend in the philanthropic world, or let's say the way of looking at our effectiveness, is the question of multi-year grants. And Vicki, you mentioned that you have a way of doing that, setting aside a $100,000 grant. And if you could answer too, is for applicants, do they have to apply for that one specifically? Is that a
Yes.
specific pool? Okay.
Yes, it's a specific pool, and we have a specific team who evaluates the multi-year grantees, and they have to apply, they have to choose whether they want to apply for a single year or a multi-year grant. And we evaluate them that way. And we've loved it. This is our second multi-year grant, and we've really enjoyed it. In both cases, it did begin with an introduction to the organization earlier than the multi-year grant, with a smaller grant, a single year grant. And they were both young organizations at first, and we got to know them through the single grant process, and then they got confidence and we got confidence in them and supported them. So.
Great, thank you. And Anna, is this something you think you could adapt the Impact 100 model to? Because, you know, we all say we want transformative change, and we know transformation doesn't usually happen within a year, and with $25,000, you know. So I'll ask you to look in the future a little bit is this something that your group could consider doing, is the multi-year grant?
Absolutely. It is definitely something that we are already talking about. This year, when the $100,000 grant that we hope to offer in the spring will be given out over the course of 1, 2, or 3 years. So basically, we will ask the organizations to tell us how they would want to receive the money, knowing that there is still different sizes of organizations, and with different needs, they might need the pace to be slightly different. But we're also looking at other ways to try to give multi-year grants, and we'll definitely be looking, different in 2022 than we are in 2021. So just like Vicki, I mean, I think it's amazing that how they have evolved over time, and just seems like, you know, the times call for slightly different strategies. So we will continue to adapt to that.
Okay. Just to clarify how you'll do that, the mechanics of it. Let's say you have $100,000, and I'll ask you, Anna, how will that money be put in a separate account and then doled out over the remaining 2 years? Let's say if it's a 3-year grant, or are you shifting the cost of that grant to your next year to fund that second year? How are the mechanics of that working?
That's a great question, Sue. This year, it is the former, but we are very consciously trying to look at how we can give away all the money in a current year, and then still be able to offer a multi-year grant. So our grants and our membership teams are thinking about how we can evolve as an organization to be able to do that. Right now, because we are so young and our membership is still very small, we have to make sure that we actually have the money to give away.
Yeah, right. Vicki, do you have a comment on that?
I cannot for the life of me remember how we ultimately resolved that. We had to follow the rules that the Community Foundation, of which we're a donor advised fund, gave us on that. And I know that we give it each year. I just can't remember if we hold it back or if we consider it a $33,000 commitment in 2 of the subsequent years.
Well, I'll just throw in, it looks, we've been prompted here that our time is coming to an end, but I'll just say my home group, Greenville Women Giving, we've done some multi-year grants, and we allocate it all in the 1 year and hold it based on reporting for the, for the second year. At this point, we're doing 2-year grants. So we are not shifting that grant into future years. So maybe that's helpful. We've got, as I said, a lot more questions, but this, to remind you, this webinar will be posted on the Philanos website. Please come back to it. Please feel free to contact Vicki or Anna with your specific questions. And I think our next month webinar will be just as relevant to what we're all thinking, and this is about strategic planning. A very tough subject, but I know we'll have some great insights on this. So it is 1 o'clock. Thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, Anna and Vicki, for some great insights. And we were so glad to host you all, and we'll see you next month. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.